Breaking news from Buckingham Palace this evening. The King has stripped Prince Andrew of all his royal titles and kicked him out of Royal Lodge. In a statement released earlier this evening, Buckingham Palace said His Majesty has today initiated a formal process to remove the style, titles and honours of Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew will now be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. His lease on Royal Lodge has to date provided him with legal protection to continue in residence. Formal notice has now been served to surrender the lease and he will move to alternative private accommodation. These censures are deemed necessary, notwithstanding the fact that he continues to deny the allegations against him. Their Majesties wish to make clear that their thoughts and utmost sympathies have been and will remain with the victims and survivors of any and all forms of abuse. The decision comes after weeks of mounting speculation. Earlier this month, of course, Andrew was stripped of his Duke of York title amid continued controversy linking him to convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein and an alleged Chinese spy. And in the past hour, the family of Virginia Giuffre have released a statement. They said, "Today, an ordinary American girl from an ordinary American family brought down a British prince with her truth and extraordinary courage," say her brother Sky Roberts and sister-in-law Amanda. Virginia Roberts Giuffre, our sister, a child when she was sexually assaulted by Andrew, never stopped fighting for accountability for what happened to her and to countless other survivors like her. Today, she declares victory. We, her family, along with her surviving sisters, continued Virginia Giuffre's battle and will not rest until the same accountability applies to all of the abusers and abettors connected with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. It's understood that he will move, Andrew that is, to a property on private Sandringham estate in Norfolk, which will be privately funded by the King. GB News understands Sarah Ferguson will make her own arrangements and find her own home. Andrew's daughters, Princess Eugenie and Princess Beatrice, will retain their titles as they are the daughters of the son of a sovereign. The King has acted decisively tonight amid increasing public murmurings about the future of the monarchy. And last week, the monarch was heckled, of course, over the scandal during a visit to Staffordshire.
How long have you known about Andrew and Epstein? Have you asked the police to cover up for Andrew? Have you asked the police to cover up for Andrew's Charles? What do you think? Should the MPs be allowed to debate the royals in the House of Commons?
And this week, the politics magazine The New Statesman called for the abolition of the royal family on its front page. Meanwhile, Republic, the anti-monarchy campaign group, said it had instructed lawyers to investigate whether it could bring a private prosecution over allegations of sexual assault, corruption and misconduct in office. And I think Prince William is going to be an extraordinary king for this country, a king we need to bring Britain back together, to actually have the authority to rule with such vigour and energy and to slim down and modernise the monarchy. So, besides that, has King Charles saved the monarchy tonight?
Have you had a random call lately from a strange number, maybe trying to sell you something or even scam you? If so, your info could be out there. That's because of data brokers, shady companies that scrape the internet for your personal details and sell them to marketers or even scammers. These days, scammers can even use AI to mimic your friends' voices and trick you into sending money. It's not just annoying. Data brokers often target vulnerable people with high-interest loans or sketchy offers. But there is a solution. Incogni, the sponsor of this video. Incogni contacts data brokers on your behalf and requests your info be deleted from their databases. And because your data can keep popping up, Incogni keeps sending removal requests to make sure it stays gone. They've just launched a new unlimited plan with custom removals. If you find your info on a weird website, just send them the link and their privacy team will work to get it taken down. Getting started is easy. Hit the link in the description, create your account and let Incogni handle the rest. It's risk-free for 30 days and you'll get 60% off an annual plan with the code GBNews. Take back control of your data with Incogni.
Let's get the thoughts of my panel, broadcaster and journalist Linda Jubilee, former Conservative MP, Alex Stafford and former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser. Well, we're going to go back to what we were talking about earlier because, of course, this is a huge story, Matthew. But politicians haven't exactly completely kept out of this, have they? Jess Phillips comes to mind. She is the most senior politician I can find who has made open statements about this. If I could just find it here, because I do have it somewhere around here. Jess Phillips said the royal family can't pick and choose accountability. Taxpayers fund this mess and Parliament must step in if Charles won't. It's quite unprecedented from a minister to make that statement.
Yes, absolutely, but I think we'd all agree with it. I mean, I think the issue is, as we were discussing earlier, with all the revelations that we've seen about what Andrew was doing even out with Epstein. You know, I mean, when he was Air Miles Andy, when he was going around the world at the taxpayers' expense, nobody was allowed to say anything because, of course, you know, you could call him Air Miles Andy, you could take the mickey a little bit, but you couldn't criticise, you know, the fact that he was, the very fact that he was doing it because of this kind of political truce where nobody ever says anything about the royal family. Anybody who does put their head above the parapet normally gets it shot down. I think after this, there's no going back. I think what we've done, I think for Parliament itself, which actually has had quite a good few weeks because by even the threat of using its powers of investigation has actually strengthened its role. It's meant to hold the executive to account, but it's also meant to hold the ultimate power in the country, which is the royal family to account.
And the leader of the Lib Dems was due to hold a debate, wasn't he? And it was in 1 or 2 weeks' time, I think it was tabled to all appear. And that was just waiting for the storm to break. I mean, there was no point in waiting for that to start.
Absolutely. They wanted to get in before that.
Because, Linda, I'm really interested in this. In your memory, because, of course, you were a royal correspondent at some point in time, in your memory, has there ever been a moment in time that you can remember, because I can't, where Parliament has gone as far to have a debate about a member of the royal family, or at least push for one, or get this involved in the family's own dealings?
Not that I can remember. I mean, the two are entirely separate. If you go back historically to the time of Edward VIII, this country didn't even know what was going on in that relationship. I mean, he had an entire relationship where he was virtually married to Wallis Simpson, and the foreign press, the European press, were reporting every cough, spit and comma of this relationship, and people in this country knew absolutely nothing. And that kind of set the tone, and I think now that Matthew, with his remark just then, this is a watershed moment. This is the time things will change, I think.
But I would not necessarily for the better. I think we all agree around here that it's right what's happened to Andrew. But I think it opens up the floodgates of getting the politicians, as a former politician myself, involved with the royal family. And once you start questioning that, once you start politicians start bringing their opinions, their political opinions on the royal family, I think it suddenly undermines a bit of our constitutional monarchy, because the monarchy has to be separate from politics. They can't be around for the fads and trends of politicians. And I think if we start putting politicians in that, you're diminishing the role of the monarchy and what makes it special in this country, i.e. set apart. I think, obviously, such a horrific case like Andrew, yes, of course, that needed to be dealt with, and I'm glad that the King, or William perhaps, has stepped in. I think that is where the monarchy works. They don't need to have politicians to deal with something bad like this.
I think that you've made some really, really valid points, but I think one of the damaging things here now is you've shone this spotlight right on the royal family, and part of their pulling power with the public, if you'd like to describe it that way, is the mystique that surrounds it. But I think now there is no mystique left. There is no corner of the royal family that has survived this.
Well, I think is that not just a part of our society now? I mean, none of us have privacy anymore.
I agree.
We gave it up a long time ago, and I think this is just playing itself out.
I remember being at a garden party at Buckingham Palace, and
you posh, Shirley.
Only once. I've only been once, and I think that the Queen was walking past with Prince Philip, and she said something to him. She said, "Has everyone here got mobile phones except?" And it's true that you're not allowed to take photographs there. Everyone sneaks a few off, but you cannot avoid the speculation, the stories. It all goes out on social media. There's no
but in a weird way, partly because the tabloid press is not what it was in the 80s, 90s, and before. In a weird way, what I think that was freaking the royal family out was they'd obviously, after the Queen, the King has perhaps captured the public's heart more than expected. What you've actually seen now is we don't have revelations about about was it Fergie and her toe sucking back in the day?
Oh, yes.
Or the Diana Charles thing, you know, which when I was growing up was every Sunday there was another revelation from one side or the other. So actually you've seen that all come, and this was the one black spot, as it were, and therefore, you know, I think that the heckler, who will go down in history, I think, kind of summed it up. They wanted a smaller, cleaner, simpler royal family, and this was the prevention to that.
Alex, I'd like to ask you this, because is this Prince William here? Now, we talk about him a lot, and we do know, of course, very, very sadly, the King is sick. He has cancer. And, of course, this is increasing speculation about how long the King's reign will be, and whether or not now William is steering the royal family into a direction when he takes over, he can have a toxic-free reign, which is what's been quoted in the press.
I think exactly right. We've got to see the number one raison d'etre for the royal family is to make sure that it goes on. William does not want to be the last king. He needs to make sure that the royal family is bulletproof. Get rid of the bad eggs, slim down the monarchy, make it relevant for Britain. Gone are the days where you could send Andrew off to some sort of random Caribbean island to be on the Governor General.
Which is what they did with Edward.
And that probably would have happened 30, 40, 50 years ago. We haven't got any Caribbean islands left. Thanks, Tom, we're getting the Chagos Islands. That could have been perfect, but you can't do that. And I think clearly William wants a smaller royal family. We have this vast royal family. He realised you only need a few working royals. Most people in this country don't know who the vast majority of royals are. We don't need so many royals because frankly, the healthcare is a lot better. You don't need this extended mystique family. You just need a core group of people which can be tightly controlled by the firm to make sure they don't have lines.
Prince and Princess of Wales. You've got the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh. That's quite a tight four-person team. That would be absolutely fine. There's no need for any more people to be.
Well, just not in a too distant future. Of course, the Waleses, the young children, will have grown up.
They'll have grown a bit older.
They would have had at least three more working royals. Can I ask you this, because I had Charlotte Griffiths on earlier, who I think is absolutely brilliant on this stuff.
Yeah.
Editor-at-large at the Sunday Mail. She said that this could be a signal for Harry and Meghan. She believes that, and many others believe this, by the way, that actually this is now going to set a precedent. William is going to be ruthless. He is going to strip titles away from many royals.
I don't think he needs to strip titles from Harry and Meghan, whatever they're left with. I'm not quite sure.
HRH, I think it is, dukedoms.
I don't think he needs to do that. But will he allow them back in? Will he allow more proximity for them, which is what Harry has said he wants? I think he might balk at that.
Because, you know, at the end of the day, Matthew, because if Harry and Meghan can go around using the Prince and Princess title, the HRH title, the Duke title, and something embroils them in a scandal, well, the royal household is then embroiled in a scandal, and they are at arm's length from the royal family.
I think it'll be a warning to them that they need to behave themselves. Otherwise, they could be next on the hit list.
And they'll stay at arm's length.
Absolutely. So I think you may find we've seen Harry's obviously had a better few months in terms of relations with the family and also relations with the British public than before. I think it's clear that they can't just be sat in Montecito and be throwing stones at Windsor Castle. Otherwise, they might not have many. They might be playing old Harry and Meghan Windsor Mountbatten again. So I want to know what's going to happen at Christmas, though.
Yes, that's.
I was thinking about this over the last hour.
Will they come up? Saturday.
What's going to happen? What's going to happen to Andrew on Christmas Day? Is he going to home with a ready meal?
They're going to have to put him in the kitchen or something.
Yes.
I don't know, because he cannot come out to church with the rest of them.
But I don't think Santa's going to visit him this year anyway.
No,
or leave a lump of coal in his stocking.
I do think Prince William's going to get a lot of gifts this year for some reason. I think he might be piling them up, so to speak. I guess maybe the last sort of thing here, because Royal Lodge is one thing that's really stuck with the public. It's because he's got beautiful property. It's an estate, isn't it, really? On this
30-bedroom mansion, you know, that is so beautiful. And, of course, it has stuck into the public consciousness because, you know, we're out there with kids, you know, and trying to get on the property ladder, you know, some of them trying to find big deposits for rental properties, who are just trying to build a life, find a life. And he is in a 30-room mansion.
Mental.
On the estate, the royal estate. Of course it resonated with the public.
Well, I want to bring in now GB News royal correspondent Cameron Walker. Cameron, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Cameron, is this a crisis for the royal family, or is this a new dawn?
Well, Alex, I think it was certainly getting to crisis stage, and I think that is why the King has taken such drastic action this evening. I don't think there's been a situation in living memory, really, where we have seen a sovereign take such a kind of harsh, perhaps some people would say, approach to his brother, Prince Andrew. But I think he had no choice, didn't he? Because Prince Andrew had not only been accused of course, having sex with a 17-year-old girl on 3 separate occasions, allegations he, of course, denies, but he has continued links to Jeffrey Epstein. We then, of course, had the problem with Royal Lodge, that lease agreement where he appears to have been paying peppercorn rent for the last 20 years at the expense of British taxpayers. And then the Parliamentary Committee started to probe into that lease agreement with the Crown Estate. And the Crown Estate, of course, has a number of properties on offer around the country. And could that have potentially opened Pandora's box when it comes to other members of the royal family or other courtiers or other grace and favour pads associated with the royal family? So I think that's why the King has decided to nip this in the bud in quite such a drastic way to remove not only the Duke of York title formally with his prerogative powers as sovereign, but the Prince title, which it just hasn't happened in more than 100 years. I think the last time anything similar to this happened was at the start of World War I. But I also think, Alex, and this is a really important point, the fact that he's being moved to a property on the Sandringham estate is highly significant because the Sandringham estate, of course, is owned by the Mountbatten-Windsor family privately rather than anything to do with the Crown, as in the sovereign, or indeed the British state. And that, of course, means that no British taxpayer is going to be losing out on housing Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor in a property. It's all going to be funded by the King. And what's also significant, I think, in that statement, the King and the Queen made a point of expressing sympathy with the victims of Jeffrey Epstein and the victims of sex trafficking, something that Prince Andrew has been given the opportunity to say on a number of occasions and has chosen not to.
Yeah, indeed. Very, very interesting stuff, Cameron. Can I just briefly ask you, do you think this is going to be enough? Is this going to be enough to appease the public who have become very incensed on this topic, and rightfully so? Do you think now this will all start to die away as Andrew, of course, goes into what is essentially an exile?
Well, Alex, yeah, I mean, it certainly is an exile. And I think that is the gamble that the royal household has taken this evening. Clearly, 2 weeks ago, just saying Prince Andrew is no longer going to be using his HRH title was not enough. And the opinion polls, I think, spoke volumes, particularly today. 91% of the latest YouGov poll, the British public have an unfavourable view of Prince Andrew. But not only that, the fact that Parliament was starting to probe, the fact that members of Parliament were starting to probe into this issue via a parliamentary committee becomes a bit of a constitutional problem for King Charles. So that is what he's hoping for. I think he's shown a lot of strength tonight. I don't think we would have seen Queen Elizabeth II do this. To be honest, I think a lot of people were doubting whether King Charles was going to do this. I think a lot of people were thinking this was going to be up to the future King William V to do. But King Charles really has taken decisive action tonight as he continues with cancer treatment, as Prince William is about to embark on his first official visit to Brazil. And of course, from speaking to sources close to William, it was pretty clear they're very angry that this Andrew problem was still hanging over just days before Prince William goes to Brazil, which clearly would have overshadowed the whole thing. So I think they're all hoping it's nipped in the bud. But to be honest, I think it's going to be days before we find out whether it's been enough.
Brilliant stuff there. Cameron Walker, GB News royal correspondent. Thank you so much for giving us those insights there. And of course, we'll be talking more about this throughout the show. I wonder, and I know you're all thinking, the front pages, I think it's going to be a bloodbath. I think they're going to be everywhere. But until we get to them, which will be very shortly,